Today it's going to be a powerful one, and the reason I felt almost forced to do it because of so many emails I've been getting about people feeling, an emotional pain in their stomach, and they feel isolation, they feel loneliness, etc., etc. And so I thought, if I can address it from the optimum point, then I think it will create more of an impact. So today, I'm not going to pull any punches and say that it is. Okay? The word that we're going to focus on is called nothingness. And the moment we understand it, wonderful things start happening. I'm learning more every day. Just because I'm talking here, you might think I'm very wise. It's just that I focus on it most of the time. But we're learning all the time to simply trust more and more the nothingness that we are, which is everything. You see, nothingness is that thing that you can call it your beloved. You can fall in love with it. You can love it more than anything. When you understand it. When you don't understand it, it's the scariest, most frightening thing there is. In fact, if we were to talk about all emotional pain, sickness, whatever, it is all fear of nothingness. All of it. I've got nowhere to go, life is meaningless, why do I get up in the morning to go? There's nothing, I'm not looking forward to anything, I'm empty. See, it all comes back to nothingness because we don't understand it. So, think of it this way, okay? You have a wound, you injure yourself. You have a gash in your leg. And it's very, very serious. Now, what do? There's only one thing to do to keep it clean. Got it? The moment you keep it clean, you bandage it, and then nature takes its course. Nature takes care of everything. It is not the drugs that heal it, it is not the doctor that heals it, it is nature that heals it. The body has its own healing power, nothingness. You see, we're going to understand a little more as we go along, okay? And so what happens is this, that if we were to leave that wound unclean, it can get infected. Well, the moment it gets infected, it can come to the point where it can even get gangrene. In that case, you might have to have your leg cut off, or it can kill your whole body. So in other words, what I'm saying is that when you allow nature, when you allow life itself to take over, it will take over. But the moment you bring fear into it, then you infect it. You see? And then the worst, the emotional pain comes in. So like I was saying, I was getting so many emails, and some of them were really very serious. I mean, my heart went out to them, and how much they're suffering in the depression, and take drugs and go to psychiatrists and doctors, and things keep getting worse. And the truth be told, it is spiritual poverty that causes all suffering. But spiritual poverty means this, that you're always trying to make something out of nothing. Always. They did this to me, this has happened to me, I'm not good enough, oh, it's because of this, oh, if I were like that. See, we're always making something out of nothing. But the point is that there is nothing. Nothing, there's only spirit, nothingness itself. You know how beautiful nothingness is. Now, when I talk about nothingness, what I mean is this. It's not a vacuum, okay? And it is not an abyss, it's not. What nothingness means, it means that everything that you think is real is really nothing itself. Nothing that you can imagine, nothing that you can think of. It just is. You see? And that isness, once we get close to it, it is everything. So today, for the sake of explaining what it does, is it's a focused moment. Now, there could be intent, but there's no thought in that focused moment. When that moment is totally focused, you're in nirvana, called nothingness. Okay? As long as you're intellectual, trying to figure it out, trying to understand it, you'll always fail. Because it has nothing to do with thought, it has nothing... It took me 27 years to understand this. Okay? It's absolutely nothing. You've got to empty yourself in order for you to begin to understand in the heart. One time I went on vacation quite a few years ago, and I went to Hawaii with a girl, with a woman. And while I was in Maui, I met a man who was a surfer, a young man. And I was attracted to this man because he had a radiance in his face. His eyes were full of life, you know. So I told him, I said, "Oh, you're a surfer?" He says, "Yeah," and he wouldn't stop talking about surfing. And then something wonderful happened. He started explaining to me how he would die surfing, and it would be all right. He said, "Because when I'm riding that surf, you know, I am the universe. And there's no thought. There's nothing there." And he said, "Man, you don't know what living is until you are surfing." But of course, surfing is to him what this nothingness is. So this gave me quite an insight, you know. And then I began to think of all the people that want to get this moment of focused moment. That is not a thought, that is not anything. Just that focused moment, you see? And then I began to think of people who skydive. And then they begin to think, no, something better than skydiving, free falling. And not open the parachute until I'm close to the ground. And man, that's living. Now why is it? Because when you're falling at great speed from the airplane, at that moment there's no thought, there's no ego, right? Just like surfing. And because there is no thought, you're in nirvana. You're in heaven. You see, that moment is so alive because it's total focus. You see, there's no thought, there's not, what shall I do next? Like, for example, you're racing. Now, why do people race? They take a corner at 200 miles an hour, you know? And it's amazing because when they're racing, they say, "Oh, that's living." Bungee jumping. There's so many people go bungee, you know what bungee jumping is? You know? And they're off the ground maybe that much. But they're living on the edge. Why do we want to live on the edge? Because when you live on the edge, there's no ego at all. And it challenges every aspect of your life. And at that moment, you're meeting nothingness head on. See? So nothingness is really the key. Now, when we get young people who are told what to do by their parents, who are controlled by their teachers, who are controlled by the police and authority, sometimes these kids get frustrated and they turn to drugs. And it was very interesting, many years ago I became interested why so many kids take drugs, and drugs are very popular. And it is because when you take a drug, there's no ego at that moment. You see, you get euphoria, you get high. But then, of course, it's not healthy, and it ruins your brain. So people drink also to escape, because when you get drunk, there isn't that much ego either when you're drunk. So you're not living on the edge exactly, but it takes you a semblance of nothingness. You see, we get that experience of nothingness. Now there is in Zen, there's a beautiful quote, and I'd like you to listen carefully because many of you might have read it. And it says, "There is a mountain." The second phrase is, "There is no mountain." The third phrase is, "There is a mountain." Did you ever read this in Zen?
It's a song too.
Okay, do you understand it? Those are the 3 stages leading to nothingness. Okay, let me explain. Even if you know what it means, let's take it deeper in the form of what nothingness. See, in the beginning there is a mountain. Yeah, there is a world. And the world is very real. As a matter of fact, you teach your children, you know, you go to school, and you go to college, then you get a degree, and then you get married, and then you prepare to die. No, I'm just kidding. And so what I mean is that here we live everyday life, and we never question life. So this is the physical. There is a mountain. So there's a mountain, there's a car, there's a house, there's a degree, there's education, there's society, there's blah, 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 blah. Everything, right? Everybody goes through that. So, but to you it's very real. It's very real. You become a dentist, a doctor, whatever. Okay? So here's life. But then there comes a moment when he says, there's got to be something more than this. You see? And then you become a seeker. Now, when you become a seeker, you take on, especially nowadays, you know, you take on something very, very deep. People are staying away from religion now. The people who stick with religion are usually people who are brought up in it in childhood. But because now people are really questioning, you know, what is truth? What is life all about, really? Who am I? You know? So there are four things that people take up that teach you the truth. Metaphysics, quantum physics, Course in Miracles, or Advaita Vedanta, which is non-dualistic teaching. All four teach more or less the same. And what they teach is there is no world. Everything is an illusion. You see? And so what happens is that you take this study, this is in the middle path. There is no mountain. Okay? This is the middle one that says there is no mountain. And you begin to say, yes, there is no mountain. You know, I'm seeing people, I'm seeing things, but actually there's nothing there. But to you, they're still there. Okay? But you are mouthing off what you've been reading, and so to you it seems that somehow, gee, you know, I know the truth. I mean, I know it up, you know, backwards and forwards. I studied the Course, and, you know, or I studied metaphysics or whatever. And especially now with quantum physics, and you're all familiar with that, right? You know, it's very, very popular now. And they're proving more and more that there is no world as we think there is. So what happens is you think there's something wrong with me because I still see a world. So there is no mountain in the beginning. Is very confusing and very frustrating. And this can last a whole lifetime. And in most people, unfortunately, it does. But then there comes a moment when you have the courage to face the fact that the only problem there is with everything that you're doing is because you think there is an individual person called me. You see, but in truth, there isn't. There isn't at all. There is only oneness. There is only nothingness. But hey, that's scary. That's frightening. And you'll do anything. What if I get enlightened? Maybe I'll understand enough. So no, but it is still me that wants to be enlightened, that wants to be awakened. So there is this push-pull, and of course it keeps getting very frustrated. So the middle ground, there is no mountain, is a very, it's a middle part, squashed between two. But then there comes a moment when you say, well, if it is the truth, it is the truth. And truth is true. And there's nothing I can do about it. You know, it's choiceless. So I want to understand it. So what does that nothingness mean? And then you begin to see that, yeah, everything is nothingness. You know, it's a funny thing. You know, everything is nothingness. Good, bad, right, wrong, should, everything is nothingness. For example, take fear. You begin to understand, yeah, actually there is no fear. All it is really a frustration of love. But then what is love? Yes, fear is nothingness. It actually doesn't exist. It is a frustration of love. But now, what is love? Does love exist? No. Love is nothingness. That's why it's so beautiful. Because nothingness has no beginning and no end. You see? Do you understand? It isn't something that comes and goes. So here we begin to see that that love itself, what we call love itself, is nothingness itself. For example, did you love someone so completely you forgot yourself? Of course. You know, it's all that focus so total that there is no ego in it. That's love. Now I'm going to mention something, sexual orgasm. Okay, sexual orgasm, how long does it last? 10 seconds, 15 seconds? We all have had it, so we know what it's like. That's what it is, that orgasm. It is that total focus that is complete within itself, and there is no ego for those 10, 15 seconds. You see? So we become addicted. We might become addicted to it. We begin to think, oh, this is what I want all the time. You see, not realizing that what we're striving for is that nothing state. Because if you really feel it in those few seconds of orgasm, just go into your mind right now, because we all have experience. There was nothing. There's just that nirvana, right? And it doesn't last long, and then it's over. Okay? But we want it again and again and again. So, let's go back. And then you begin to see that everything is nothingness. Everything. What we call peace. What is peace? It means there's no thought, nothing. You're just at peace. You're here. You're now. You know, there was a nice caption. Somebody sent it to me. And someone was meditating, and he says, I'm going to empty my mind. And there was a cat sitting next to him, and he says, why do you try? He says, my mind is empty all day long. Okay, so this is the point. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with thinking and imagination. Oh, not at all. They're wonderful as long as you know that they are not reality. Nothing is real except what we call emptiness or nothingness. You see? And that nothingness is the most glorious thing that there is. There is nothing that can touch it. So when you begin to see that everything is nothingness, you begin to get moments of great energy. Energy will start to come to you. You know, you begin to feel good. You will reach moments of meditation, let's say of stillness, for example, because it's all about stillness. And what does stillness mean? Oh, there's 7 most beautiful words in the English language. Be still. And know, I am God. You see? And that I am has nothing to do with me or you. It's I am, which is the very essence of all that is. Right? Which is the essence of nothingness. Absolute nothingness. So when you begin to realize that everything is nothingness, whether negative or positive, because negative and positive are simply a duality that only exists in the mind. When you go beyond duality, you are in stillness. That stillness is what we always wanted. It is the highest heaven. You see, when Buddha became enlightened, he said, there's no creator, there's no creation, there is absolutely nothing, there's only nirvana. You see, which means, of course, nothingness. See? So now how we begin to understand it in different ways, nothingness. Well, nothingness, which is that focus, total focus, but there is no thinking at that moment. Okay, that is your natural state. What is that natural state called other than nothingness? Pure awareness. Pure awareness. You're always aware. But the point is, who is being aware? You see, that is the key. That really hits you. You always think it's you who's aware. 7 billion humans on this earth, they all think it's them who's aware. It's awareness that is aware. But it is self-recognizing, and so you begin to think it's you. And then you create a personality out of you. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with personality. You never change. Even when you fully awaken to nothingness, your personality doesn't change. You're still the same zodiac sign, the same enneagram, you're male or female, you're still the same. But your viewpoint has totally changed. You've shifted totally in your looking, in your seeing. So right now when you see that everything is nothing, then you see the face of God everywhere. Because God is nothing. See, in religion you always make it into something, you know. And we always want to make something out of nothing. That's the spiritual poverty type. The type of us that wants to do everything. But when we see that something is nothing, then it is infinite intelligence itself. You see? Now, so here we have pure awareness, and in the beginning, in the very beginning, before mankind appeared on the earth, before the earth appeared, we lived in paradise. We lived in oneness. We lived in nirvana. We lived as pure awareness. And then somehow or other, the fall of man, quote, the Big Bang, and the human was born, and he started the evolution and getting to know himself over and over again. But the point is that pure awareness has always been. Pure awareness is. No beginning nor end. It just is. That pure awareness, then, from it comes energy and order. Stay with me here, okay? Order and energy come from pure awareness. From energy and order come waves. Now when I talk about waves, please understand that waves is everything that makes us experience everything. You know, for example, this room is filled with waves. Okay, maybe even billions of waves. And you can know that because if you talk to somebody on the cell phone, you know, they're 100 miles away, you're talking to them as if they're here. Which in truth, everything is here, wherever you are. This is where that's what is right now, there's only now. You see? So the reason you do not hear these audio waves, or rather the sound waves, is not because there is no sound, but because our equipment, our ears, cannot detect the sound wave. Just like one time, someone asked, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one to hear it, does it make a sound? And most people these are trained to have PhDs, they're very bright people, 90% of them said, yes, it makes a sound. The truth is, it does make a sound wave, but there's no sound unless there's someone to hear it. You see? So this room and everywhere else is filled with sound waves. Cosmic waves, sound waves, video waves, radio waves, whatever waves, right? Okay, from waves we get subatomic energy. From subatomic energy we get the atom. From the atom we get from the atom comes particles.
Molecules?
Molecules come after particles.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good, thank you. Yeah, particles and then molecules, molecular structure. From molecular structure comes matter. And then we say, oh, it's real. It's real because I can touch it, I can feel it. But it is still nothing there. You see? And that's the third stage. Now there is a mountain. Okay? This is that stage of awakening in Zen. First there is a mountain, then there's no mountain. Now there is a mountain. You see the world, you see the people, you see everything. But you know it is all an appearance of this energy. But the first thing you see is this energy, which is called spirit, which is called God. You see? Now it is true that God is not mentioned by everyone, but please understand, like for example this Tony Parsons, and he's quite an awakened man. He's very, very clear, beautiful English man. And he says there is no God. One time he made a statement. And then he keeps talking about wholeness. Everything is whole. Well, wholeness and God are the same. But what he's meaning, there is no God, the God that people think of God as an entity. There's only nothingness and it's all one. This oneness is God. This oneness is, you see? So this is the truth. And so in the third level of Zen, when you say there is a mountain, yes, there is everything. But everything is nothing. It's all energy. It's all, shall we say, spirit. Okay? It's all spiritual essence. So that is the nature of nothingness. Yes, so I'd like to go back to first talking about the pure nothingness, pure awareness. Because that's what it is. Pure awareness means there's no thought, There's no agenda. There's no past or future. There's no time and space. It's just, here we are. Awareness, right? Okay? So the two aspects, and I think I mentioned it before, but it's very important to mention it again. The first aspect of pure awareness is that it is self-recognizing. This means that if you ask somebody and you say, how do you know you exist? And they say, because I know. Well, how do you know? And then they'll say, because I'm aware I exist. You see? And so it's awareness itself recognizing itself. So every human being on this earth recognizes that they exist. You see? But it is awareness recognizing itself. Oh, that is so beautiful to realize. That's called love. And incidentally, that's what love is. The moment you realize that there is no separation at all.
Do you recognize yourself because of your mask?
No, you recognize as being.
But
not anyone in particular. The ego wants to make you a particular.
But I'm trying to get that beingness from the physicalness. Like, is it?
The physicalness is just an appearance. It is not as real as we think it is. You see, it's an appearance of consciousness, because consciousness manifests. Okay, and that's why they came up with the secret. You see, the law of attraction. Through consciousness, you attract whatever you want, and it's true. Whatever you want, you will have. You see?
Based on where you're at, your consciousness is at.
No. Okay. The degree that you can visualize. The point I'm trying to make is that, in truth, the law of attraction works all the time because everything is consciousness. So whatever you're conscious of manifests. It's ipso facto. You see? For example, right now, okay, you go to the doctor and he diagnoses you with a certain disease. This is just hypothetical, okay? And you believe him because he tested you. The moment you believe him, you begin to feel it in your body. You begin to feel, you don't feel good. You feel frightened. Why? Because the law of attraction. You've attracted that belief. If you are convinced that he is wrong and you don't believe it at all, then it doesn't affect you. Okay? So the point is that what you are conscious of and you believe will immediately manifest. That's what the body is. The body is a manifestation of the belief system brought on by the mind. The mind is what? It has the pure awareness in it that has now become consciousness. Okay? So the mind is constantly creating according to what we are seeing, believing, and attracting to ourselves.
How do you deal with, there's moments where you come into the nothingness and it's blissful, but there's a big deal of seeing it and being terrified. I mean...
That's what I'm talking about. You see, there are two kinds of people. Okay, with nothingness. You either love it and it becomes your beloved, and then you're called enlightened, or it scares you silly, which it does with 95% of the population. Okay? It is that fear that causes all the emotional maladies in the world. Okay? No matter what anybody has, okay, I'm not talking about physical disease, because that could be karmic from a past life or from certain conditions or whatever, brought on by certain script that you need to go through. But I'm talking about emotional pain that you're suffering in the moment. It is all caused by the belief that you have a fear of nothingness. You see? Why? Okay, let's go back to the wound. There is a wound in your leg and all you need to do is clean it. This means you let nothing in. You keep it very, very clean. But if the slightest dirt goes in, it can get infected and you could lose your leg. Same with nothingness. As long as you keep nothingness pure nothingness, then you're in nirvana, you're in heaven. But if the slightest fear comes, that is something. Got it? Nothingness means nothing. Fear is something. Got it? Fear is something. Love is nothing. Okay? But then you say, Burt, didn't you say that fear is nothingness too? Yes, in its essential nature, it is nothingness too. And this is why, when you begin to see everything as nothing, even fear has no place anymore. It becomes immediately forgiven. You see? Because there's nothing to forgive. It's a self-creation. Fear is a self-creation. So when we're talking about nothingness, we're talking about pure nothingness. Absolutely nothing. You see?
So where does that emotion come from?
Emotion is that very movement that comes. Remember when we talked about pure awareness? I think it was last satsang. Yeah, when we talk about pure awareness, if you go down to the very depths of the ocean and you hit the bed of the ocean, you find another world there, and it's very peaceful, very still. But from the stillness, sometimes you see bubbles rising to the surface, and then they take on a different form of expression. Well, it's the same with the mind. When you go deep into the mind is a wonderful thing. The mind is a wonderful servant. It is a very poor master because it keeps you caught in its thoughts. But if you master the mind, there's nothing more beautiful than that. When you enter nothingness, you master the mind. See, that's the beautiful thing, because the mind is beautiful in its totality. So at the bottom of the mind, there is a stillness, there is a silence, there is a beauty, there's pure awareness. And then from that comes little bubbles, okay? We have to picture this. And they start going up and up and up and up, and they get larger and larger and larger. Finally, they reach the surface and they explode. Okay? Now, that explosion is called reaction. That reaction is coming from the belief that whatever has exploded it's reminding you of something that you might not have wanted to look at, wanted to think about, or whatever. So that's called emotion. Now, the reason it's called emotion, it is because there's motion of energy. The moment it reaches the surface, it moves in the body. Okay? Like you feel anxiety, you feel it in the body. You feel nervous, you feel it in the body. Whatever you feel, you always feel it in the body, because the body is an emotional body. So that's what an emotion is, you see. But when you feel it in the body, it has taken all that time from the bottom to the surface. It's grown bigger and bigger and bigger to the point now that you believed it. And you believe it so much that to you it's real. So now you suffer. But the suffering is only created by the mind because you made it real, the law of attraction. Got it? Are you with me so far? Okay. Now, you're going to tell something?
Yeah, what I sometimes don't understand is, who is the one who's believing in that? Like you say, it's you that believes in the bubbles that go up. Who am I that's believing the bubbles?
Called ego.
So that's it. Okay, yeah.
That's the idea that you are a particular entity with a particular name, and so you've adopted, it's called identification, your ID. So you identify with that, and that identification starts identifying with that thought. That's called belief then. You see what I mean? So it comes from that primordial feeling of identification, right? So that's one aspect of self-recognizing. Now, another thing about the pure awareness that is so beautiful is that it's self-organizing. That is the most beautiful thing. I get people asking me very deep questions, and I've learned most of what I know. It is because nothingness to me is the Holy Spirit. So so I go into empty my mind, and then everything starts to come so clear. Wow! Whew, how could I not know this? It's so clear. So anyway, the self-organizing. So sometimes people ask me questions like, Burt, when I made my wife pregnant, and we have a beautiful baby daughter, and she says, what created it? What happened? My wife didn't do it. Okay, it's pure awareness that did it. It is self-organizing. You see, who's the director of that fetus that turns it into a human being? You see? Self-organizing. When you cut, you had a gash in your leg and you kept it clean. What healed it? Self-organizing awareness. You see? It is all self-organizing. What keeps the earth rotating around the sun in such precision that in 365 days it's right back where it started, not an iota out of balance. What is that precision? Self-organizing principle of nothingness, pure awareness. You see? So we can go on and on and on and on, seeing how, and this is when we begin to understand that we can trust the self-awareness that we are. Self-awareness, incidentally, is God. Okay? It's the infinite intelligence. It is all that there is, which is you, which is the I am. You see? And so when you begin to trust it, wonderful things start to happen. I kid you not, we couldn't make that thing go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I kept trying and trying and trying and nothing. Then the next day I listened to Sylvia. She said, Burt, take it back. You know, you've got 2 years warranty. And I said, okay, I'll take it back. And I was ready to go. I put it in the bag and everything. And then the little voice said, this is the beautiful thing. You see, when you start working on yourself, this voice will start talking to you in a very beautiful way. And it just, you know, go into silence, see what happens. You know, to try it. So I did. I went into silence. And I went into it, and I didn't do anything different with it. And it started working. How? I have no idea. I don't understand anything. But I know it does work. Okay? And if you think I understand everything that I'm saying, I do not. I only know it's real. I only know that I can trust it. You see? So this is the beauty of self-organizing. It is just that everything is self-organizing. Everything is taken care of by itself. You know, you put a morsel of food in your mouth. Do you think about, now I have to make sure it goes down and it assimilates and it creates muscle and protein, and then I have to eliminate what I don't need, you know? No, it does it all. Self-organizing. You see, your heart is beating, your blood is circulating. It's self-organizing. Everything. It's you see, this is the beauty and wonder of who you are. And so when we begin to understand, now that's nothingness. Now why is it nothingness? Because it is nothing that you can put your finger on, and it is not a thought, it's not imagination. It is nothing that you can figure out. It's nothing that the mind can think of. It created the mind. You know, some people said, Burt, I've been studying the brain. The brain is everything, you know. And they said, I went to brain experts, I took a course on the brain. And he said, but what happens now when the brain dies? I'm finished, right? And I said, okay. So I wrote him back and I said, first of all, who created the brain? You see? And they're stopped right there. Nobody goes deep enough. This is what happens. You have to go back to nothingness. And then you still don't understand. But what happens when you go into nothingness, something in you starts to awaken. This is called the awakening. That's why in Zen they said first there is a mountain, then there's no mountain, then there is a mountain. And finally that's the awakened state. The awakened state is not something you're going to achieve. It is something that just says, wow, how could it be otherwise? You know, here I am. The fact that I am here means something brought me. Something did it. You see, I don't know what it is. But its nature is something that the mind cannot figure out or cannot think. It is infinite. Because it's not time and space. It has no beginning or end. You see? And then when you begin to feel this intensity, you begin to feel this truth, something happens. And you begin to understand in ways you never thought was possible. You see? It's not cleverness, it's not smartness, it's not shrewdness, it's not worldliness. It's simply pure intelligence. You see, that happens. So that's the self-organizing principle of pure awareness. Now, pure awareness actually creates what we call miracles.